Today is March 31st, the last day of March. I mean, if you didn't know that, you know, tomorrow is March 32nd, 2023. And that means what I think, that means tomorrow is April Fool's. Oh my goodness, what are we going to do? I hate that. You know who loves April Fool's is Wes Nisker. You should go and just Google or go on YouTube and look for Wes Nisker talking about April Fools. And you'll be glad you did. You'll be thanking me because you'll be laughing. And it'll be a Dharma teaching that's got you laughing. So we're going to meditate any minute now. Let's go. If I keep talking like this, I won't even have to give a Dharma talk tonight. I'll just be able to. All right, now we'll start meditating. Sorry. All right. People look like they're preparing. You can close your eyes or just lower your gaze. You want to settle into a comfortable seated posture or lying posture. And come into stillness. And so letting the body settle and just bringing your awareness into your body. It's a very simple idea to be aware of your body. And the Buddha says in the Four Foundations of Mindfulness Sutta that you can simply be aware that there is a body. It's almost too simple. So we have some more guidance on how to be aware that there is a body. Or you can take some time to relax different points in the body. Relax your jaw, your shoulders, your belly. Just have a sense of releasing, surrendering through the body, softening. Before we turn to the breath, maybe just take a moment to notice what sensation, what area of the body just draws your attention or is most noticeable right now. And then gently guiding the attention to the breath. You can feel the breath at the nostrils, the touch of air going in and out. Or follow the breath in the belly, the rising and falling. Or you can more generally be aware of the body breathing, the breath in the body. Whatever is most natural and easy for you to pay attention to. So beginning by being with the simplicity of the breath, touch and the movement, the feeling. Part of our project in mindfulness practice is to get back to these simple foundational elements of our experience, stepping out of the complicating habits of mind, the concerns and plans, worries, all the thinking, just coming to something more basic, just being alive in a body. And then we want to begin to notice when the mind wanders, when thoughts take us away from this simple aspect of our existence, the breath, the body. So we're starting with this awareness of the body and the breath as a primary focus, noticing when thinking happens, the thoughts, the words and images that capture our attention, and coming back, letting go of those words and images, back to the breath. But we want to also notice if there are underlying feelings, any mood or emotion that's influencing the focus of the mind and the thoughts in the mind. Start to see that all of these things are interrelated. Thoughts are conditioned by feelings. Pleasant feelings tend to arouse pleasant thoughts, pleasant perceptions, and vice versa. Unpleasant leads to unpleasant. Unpleasant thoughts then tend to trigger unpleasant feelings. So the relationship goes both ways. When we see this, we realize the conditioned quality of our thinking, our feeling, instead of this being a self that's thinking. It's a set of different factors coming together that manifest as a thought in a moment. Not I, not me, not mine. Not to be taken personally. The key insight. Doesn't mean that we stop having thoughts. And of course, knowing this intellectually doesn't stop us from feeling as if there is a self and getting caught again in that. But it gives us a reference point, something we can remind ourselves when trapped in some negative cycle of thoughts and feelings. When we can step away, see this as just a group of or collection of conditioned forces manifesting in one particular way in one particular moment, can be a great relief. We don't have to follow the story or believe the story, get stuck in the feelings. It's much easier to let go. interesting. My interface is missing the toolbar at the bottom. I wonder if I did something to make that happen. Or if God did it. Well, anyway, I've got enough to function. I had the mute button. That was the important thing. I always want to be able to mute myself. I know there are others who would like to be able to mute me as well, but, you know, there is a First Amendment. So, and so, as I said, we're right at the end. Oh, right. There was that question from Gail. So it's 10 a.m. Pacific tomorrow. And so you're in the Midwest, right? So that would be noon for you, I believe. Noon Central, I see it. Yeah. And apparently people come from all over to that meeting. That's why they have all the different times, like Kenya, India, China. AEST, I guess it's like Australia or somewhere. Anyway, there we are. My wife is in Ireland, but she won't be tuning in. So what else? We should put the link to the Sunday event, the what you call Buddhist Recovery Network. Here's the page from the Academy, and then you just hit the, it's got the, I think it's got the Zoom idea on there. So if you're interested in that event, same time, 10 a.m. Pacific on Sunday morning. And my topic is long enduring mind, long enduring mind. So they asked me for a topic. I don't like to come up with topics, but thought that would be a fun one to talk about. What was the other thing I was thinking about? So does prayer work? The perennial question. Here's what Kevin Griffin said in 2010. The focus of my teaching is on meditation and the ways that it can help us work the steps and stay sober. But occasionally I'm asked about prayer. After all, in step 11, prayer is given just as important a place as meditation. People want to know if there is prayer in Buddhism and if I believe that prayer works. My main concern about prayer is the expectations we bring to it. Do we think that by repeating certain words, we're going to get what we want, that we or others are going to change? Are we expecting prayer to do the hard work of inner and outer transformation for us magically? Addicts have a tendency to get caught in fantasy. When we're under the influence, our minds spin out dreams of success, fame, and glory. Even in meditation, I find that addicts tend to go into bliss states or pleasant fantasies more frequently than others. In my teaching, I try to counterbalance these tendencies with a dose of reality, trying to help people to stay grounded in practical and logical perceptions of the world. That being said, the question remains, does prayer work? That is, can words we say silently in our hearts affect external things and other people? I don't know the answer to that, but I infer from one of the Buddhist teachings that this may be possible. The Buddha said that one of the things that can't be measured, that is beyond comprehension, is the power of a concentrated mind. If that is the case, then perhaps the mind can affect the material world directly. That may give a hope to those who want to change things with prayer. However, it's important to understand what is required to concentrate the mind to that level. First of all, concentration requires being free from the 5 hindrances. There's some people in the waiting room there. Angela, we got to let them in. Let them in. Open the door and let them in. Okay. First of all, concentration requires being free from the 5 hindrances. That means we need to be free of greed and ill will to get that concentrated. Following this logic, if we are free from greed, then our prayers can't be about acquiring anything for ourselves. If we are free from ill will, then our prayers can't be about hurting anyone or taking anything away from anyone. Essentially, this means that our prayers can't be selfish, which is exactly what step 11 says, praying only for knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out. If you're still interested in using prayer to change the outer world, consider further what is required to attain that kind of concentration. The great concentration masters in the Buddhist tradition typically spend many years, either alone or in monastic settings, practicing silent meditation. This is a lifetime commitment, and I think a worthy one, but most of us aren't willing to make it. However, this isn't to say that prayer doesn't have its value for one whose meditation practice isn't so deep. The real purpose of prayer isn't to fix the outside world, but to reorient the inner world. This is what I'm trying to do when I make daily vows of right speech. Now, I have some things in here about about my daily practice, but that's the way I practiced 13 years ago, so it's changed. But anyway, these are all good examples. This is what I'm trying to do when I make my daily vows of right speech. The vow helps me to be more mindful of my tendencies. That leads to changes in the outside world, but it has to begin with an inner awakening. When I say, just for today, I will avoid teasing and sarcasm, it might sound like a prayer to God, which might be, please God, stop me from being sarcastic. Obviously, I gave up on that a long time ago, but I was trying when I was a younger person. All right. But I think it is accomplishing the same thing. Okay, wait, let me go back here. When I say that, just for today, may I avoid this, it might sound like a prayer to God, but I think it is accomplishing the same thing. It's reminding me each moment of my intention to change. That's like one of my kind of key things, that prayer is about reinforcing intention. Other prayers have more to do with the heart. I do daily prayers of loving kindness for myself and others, and these have the effect of taking me out of fear and resentment and reminding me of my core love. Breathing and softening my heart allows me, at least for those moments, to connect with what is really important and to drop the petty issues troubling my mind. I also do prayers for healing, again, because it helps me to feel connected with people who I know are suffering. I suspend my doubts because I really don't know if these prayers have an effect. It's certainly possible. The logical way of arriving at the possibility that prayer actually works in the material world is to consider our individual consciousness as connected to some universal consciousness. If we are all connected in this way, then my prayers are touching other consciousness. I'm not ready to completely buy into this idea, but I also know that there are limits to my knowledge. Rejecting ideas without proof just because they sound magical is just as bad as believing magical ideas because they make you feel good. So, does prayer work? In some ways, I say, absolutely, in the ways it awakens and transforms my heart. In other ways, I say, don't know. So there you go. That was fun. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, really, the Buddhist version of prayer is one of them is the practice of loving kindness, right? May I be happy. May you be happy. May all beings be free from suffering. It's the same thing. It's just, and I don't talk about that in the book, but although I might talk about it in other places, it's just the question of agency. Like, does this, when we pray to God, we're sort of assuming that there is this, I'll say external, but maybe not even external, this force that has power and then thus is an agent and has power over things. And so we're trying to, as they call it, intercessionary prayer, asking God to intercede in our lives or in the matters of the world or other people's lives. And that's a very religious take, right? It's very theistic view. And from the Buddhist practice isn't speaking to anyone or anything, which means we're just speaking to ourselves. And I think the argument could be made that even people who think they're praying to God are also just speaking to themselves. I mean, maybe they're talking to God, but they're definitely talking to themselves, right? So that's one thing we can know for sure, that we're saying those words to ourselves. And so I think it's helpful, I think it's interesting anyway, to consider, well, what does that mean if I'm saying things to myself? What's the point of that? Am I just like talking to myself, like blah 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 blah, or does it have some purpose? Does it have some meaning, some goal? And certainly I would say that it has purpose and meaning and goal. And in fact, there is agency within us. So it kind of brings to mind the famous line from the suttas: whatever one frequently thinks and ponders upon, that will become the tendency of the mind. So if we frequently walk around going, may all beings be happy, may I be happy, may those I love be happy, may difficult people be happy, may all beings be happy, you're creating, this positive, constructive, kind mind state and habit of thinking. On the other hand, if you're like a normal person and you walk around, those bastards, they're all trying to keep me down, and we got to get that guy, throw him in jail, and get out of my way, and I need more money, and what's wrong with me? I'm such an idiot, then we're just plugging ourselves in to those things. We're just creating that habit of belief and all the repercussions of those beliefs, right? Because thoughts are not just words in the mind. They have other results, both short-term and long-term. The immediate result of thoughts is feelings. So when you have loving thoughts, you tend to have loving feelings. When you have angry and frustrated thoughts, you tend to have angry, frustrated feelings. So then you're generating, mind states, not just, it's not just that I think I'm an idiot, I feel like an idiot, It's not just that I'm thinking about loving all beings, I feel love. So this is critical, right? In terms of our quality of life. Our life, what is our life but these moments and the choices that we make? And so this is like the critical thing, that opportunity that mindfulness is giving us to see how we create our life. And of course, we don't create everything. It's not magic, but so much of what we think and feel is just internally generated and habitual, and usually it's unseen and unnoticed, and that's the key of mindfulness, to see it, because without seeing it, we can't change it. We can't know that there's a problem. It's like you're in denial about your addiction. You're in denial about what your mind is doing. So when you come out of denial, when you come into mindfulness and wakefulness of what's in the mind, then you have the opportunity to, I was going to say change, but to institute a program of change, let's say, because it's not as if, I see, I've got this bad habit of being angry. Okay, now that I see it, I'll just stop. No, of course not, because that conditioning is very deep. So, but we can set our intention and start to work towards that, and not with any ideas of perfection, but just of progress, as we say in the 12-step world. just to work on it, and just little changes can make huge differences in our lives, right? We just catch ourselves, especially in some of those critical moments when we're about to go over the cliff and go, oh, like, what am I doing? Or maybe we've gone over the cliff, but at least we can like, oh, wait, there's a parachute, it's called let go, It's like, okay, I got really mad. Or the other parachute, the not, 10th step, make an amends, apologize. All the ways that we can, correct for ourselves. There was something else I was going to say along these lines. I was talking about the short-term impact of the thoughts being feelings, but the longer-term impact is the actions that we take based on our beliefs and thoughts. And so, each one of you here, who's in recovery, created this life for yourself that was not good. You didn't get into recovery because everything was so great that you're like, I think 28 days in rehab would just be so much fun. I think like, no, I mean, we created pretty painful lives for ourselves. And that's also, not seeing that we're creating it for ourselves. Now, we didn't think we were praying for that life, but if prayers are words that we say to ourselves, what's the difference between a prayer and a thought? I'm not sure there is one, except it's intentional. I mean, a prayer is intentional, and it's, pointed in a certain direction that presumably is trying to generate something positive, something beneficial, something good in the world. But in terms of its power is the connection we have to it, the belief that goes along with it, the intention that we set with it, the orientation of our mind that goes with it. And so that's just the same thing that thoughts do, that any thoughts do. So when we're lost in negativity, in anger, in fear, in anxiety, in self-judgment, it's creating it has the same powerful effect, potentially, seems to me, that a prayer has. So it becomes like a negative prayer. And I mean, I'm using this very dualistic language and, loaded language, good, bad, negative, all that. I'm only using that language because I'm maybe too lazy to soften it and say, more skillful instead of, unskillful instead of negative. So I hope you're not bothered or offended by that, and just translate it for yourself. But that's the idea, that unskillful, unwise thinking creates suffering. And so there are these implications. And so really, we're talking about karma here, really, right? Because cause and effect, right? And that's the law of karma. And interestingly, in terms of kind of what I'm saying, in terms of the immediate and the long term, the Buddha says that about karma, that that the karmic impact of actions, thoughts, words, and deeds can ripen at different times. It can ripen immediately, or at a later time. It can ripen in a different lifetime, and that's very much kind of what I'm talking about how how our prayers work on us, and how our thoughts work on us, and how they work out, how their existence kind of plays out in our lives. So, this all, again, just comes back to this simple idea of watching your mind. I was watching the documentary about the founding of the Insight Meditation Society, which is quite a little trip if you get to see it. I talked about it maybe in my last class, and I don't know if any of you have seen it. The Insight Meditation Society is the meditation center in Massachusetts that Joseph Goldstein and Jack Kornfield and Sharon Salzberg and Jacqueline Mandel started back in 1976. And it was the first big Western Buddhist center founded, and founded by Westerners. And, just an incredibly important moment. And of course, it was a bunch of ex-hippies, basically, as they admitted, sort of in their 20s and early 30s, who had no idea what they were doing. So it was, remarkable, and really just speaks to their integrity, even as young as they were, that it worked out as well as it did. As Joseph Goldstein says a couple times in that, and he's quoted a couple times in the documentary, that his own teacher used to say, the Dharma takes care of those who take care of the Dharma, which is an expression that I love. But he also, what I was getting at is that Joseph talks about how he studied philosophy in college, and it was always just reading about what other people's theories about how the world, existence worked, or whatever, how life worked, but that there was never anything about how to deal with the suffering of the world, or what to do about it. It's just all theoretical. And so when he met Munindra, his teacher, his teacher said to him, if you want to understand the mind, sit down and watch it. And Joseph is always that just made so much sense. It was the most reasonable thing, very simple, but yeah, that's what we're doing here, just watching our minds, which is why it's interesting that people come to meditation thinking they're supposed to stop thinking. It's well, that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to understand our thinking and learn about our thinking. And yeah, in order to do that, it helps if you can quiet things down enough that you're not just, and there isn't just a, fire hose of thoughts running through the mind 24 hours a day. There's a little bit of space. But if you just shut off your thoughts, by that theory, you're not going to learn very much. Not to mention the fact that if you shut off your thoughts, you're probably doing something unwholesome. I don't know how you would do that, maybe with some strong medicine, or maybe with a very repressive meditation program, that suppressive, one that just suppresses thought. And many of you may have had experience where you're wow, just I blanked out. It was just empty. And that can happen, and not always unwholesome. But a fair amount of the time when that happens, it's just because you're almost asleep, basically. So don't get excited, just saying. Could be great. So, there's a lot of important basketball happening tonight that we're missing right now. And we're talking about the women's Final Four here, besides the Warriors. So there are things to be done, but there's little time left here. if anybody would like to chime in and say hello, or say help, or just ask a question. Oh, I looked away. Say Derek and the Dominoes song. Mary Helen, hello, dear.
Hi there. I'm so glad that we read this piece about prayer, because I heard you say, and I really resonated with it at the end of our retreat. We were talking about practicing metta, which has been a really important thing recently because family members have been going through hard times. Mm-hmm. And I heard you say something like, well, I don't know, that sounds like a prayer to me. And I really resonated with that. It sounds like a prayer to me too.
Yeah.
And that wasn't so revolutionary, but what was what followed on that was I had to go back and lead a discussion group with a group of Unitarians that does a speaking and listening with one another. And so I chose the topic of prayer. And I described the metta as my introduction to it. This is what I'm meaning by prayer. And what I discovered is that every one of these, I think there were 7 women in this group, all of them had a negative attitude about prayer that really, it showed, 7 different ways of being wounded by religion. And they couldn't get past the fact that if you pray, you must be praying to God. And I don't believe in God. And coming from,
they're Unitarians. I mean, what do you expect?
Well, but I thought they were different.
Oh no.
So it was it was mildly traumatic.
For you?
For me, yeah.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Thinking, oh my gosh, I thought that I was sharing, a mind-opening. You can think about the Dharma God.
Yeah.
But they haven't read your book, so.
Well, I have a friend who has come to a bunch of my retreats who's a Unitarian minister, and he's talked about this. How they really don't like that God stuff.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate because obviously, you're just talking about like this very, it's people that think of, I'm sorry, like, this is great, like I'm picking on people. It sounds like a closed-minded attitude to me. It's right. Because you're not trying to convert them to anything. But it's an opportunity to ask them to look at themselves too, to say, like, what is it that's going on? Yeah, you've been wounded, and there's this anger and resentment, and is that helping you? Like, is there maybe some other way rather than just rejecting? It's just another form of fundamentalism. So I go from one end to, okay, well, I reject everything, or that's why I don't really believe in atheism. I mean, it's like I don't consider myself an atheist. I don't even particularly like the term agnostic. I mean, but yeah, I mean, this sort of wholesale rejection is it's unfortunate, right? Yeah. Especially since they're at a Unitarian, they're in a group that's got some purpose of at least sort of raising up their, I don't know, consciousness, or raising up their hearts in some way. I don't know. Anyway, sorry you had to go through that.
But I still think it's a wonderful prayer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, Gail. Hi.
Hi, Kevin. Hi, everyone. Prayer's been one of my hangups in the 12-step program. I've had a sponsor who said repeatedly, have you prayed about it? Being someone who doesn't have a God to pray to, I always found it kind of a put down,
Yeah,
like, don't you
right.
know what I believe?
Yeah.
And I heard the words tonight about being wounded and closed-minded. And I
Oh.
really fit that bill. I went to a speakers meeting last night. A fellow from Anacortes came over, and I was told that he was a Buddhist and
Uh-oh.
had written books, and one would not know that, having listened to him, because he talked a lot about prayer, about praying in the morning, when we wake up, and the prayer that's in the big book about before we retire. And it just seemed so incongruent. And so I was with a friend today. She's a Unitarian, by the way. And we were talking about prayer and about what it means. And you hit it right on the nail for me when you said the connection, that the prayer is a form of connecting to this universal connection. That was like, thank you. I highlighted it. I circled it. It was like, I needed that, because when someone says, have you prayed about it? My interpretation is me open to that idea. Just be open to it. And so that if it comes my way, because I'm open to it, I will receive it. If people say, if I pray for something and then it happens, well, it happened because I was open to seeing it.
Yeah.
The way I look at it. But anyway, I appreciate it. This was very timely for me. It has been a hang up even after 30 years. I'm still like, I'm getting my feathers get ruffled. At that meeting last night, they closed with the Lord's Prayer.
Oh boy.
So out of place for a non-religious group.
Yeah.
And I've gotten a couple of groups to stop doing that, but this was not my group that I was just visiting. So I appreciate that. It's a touchy subject. I've been wounded. I would say I'm a recovering Catholic. I'm not sure one will ever recover.
I'm with you there.
And if anyone here is a Catholic, I don't mean to put you down. It's just my own suffering.
I'm a resentful Catholic, so I'm definitely not recovered, yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting when you said, have you prayed about it? I thought it kind of just reminds me of like when I'm not sure about something and I just let it go around in my mind for a few hours or a day or two and because what I'm doing is I'm saying, I'm not sure. So really what I'm doing is I'm praying, even I'm maybe not even intentionally praying, but I'm setting out the sort of landscape for clarity to come. Because I often, like if somebody asks me, let's say, oh, come and teach in this place, and I have some doubts about it, like it could just be the scheduling or whatever. But I often have this tendency to go, oh yeah, I should do that. Like to immediately sort of, yes, okay. This is just like one example. And sometimes I'm like, let me think about it. I've learned to let me think about it. And then I'm taking a shower and I'm like, oh no, wait, if I do that, I'm not going to be able to do this. Oh, and so it's like just creating space in my mind. So I think praying about it is supposed to be about thinking deeply or reflecting about something more than it is asking God to give me God, will you please give me the answer? I mean, that's kind of ridiculous. I mean, in a way, but, and to expect that this, anyway, God is everywhere and God knows everything, as that Baltimore Catechism tells us. But yeah, to me, it's just really like giving space for my mind to process something. And that's kind of what it means for me to pray about something. And I don't use that language, but that's what it reminds me of. And
thank you.
yeah, I mean, you know, I could go on, but just to say, like, I always feel very sad about when spiritual practices become impediments or become painful for people or become struggles. And I think that this is, again, something that our Buddhist practice is meant to help us with this principle of can I just let go? You know, can I just let go? Can I let go of my resistance? You know, can I just allow that to be as it is? I mean, because I think that the Lord's Prayer doesn't belong in a program that says it's not affiliated with any sect, denomination, organization, or religion, or whatever it says. You know, it sounds to me like you're not going to have to worry about saying any religious prayers in a group like that. But it turns out that that's not quite what they meant. What they meant was, we're not affiliated with any particular Christian religion. If you're, all Christian religions are welcome. Well, all Protestants are, really is what they meant. But anyway, you know, Methodists, Presbyterians, Lutherans, you know, are totally open.
That's what sects and denominations are. They're not different religions.
Yeah, that's right. So that's what they meant, right? But one would have hoped that they meant, you know, different religions. It just didn't. They weren't quite on the ball, as we know. I mean, they did their best, you know, for 1939. Hey, I mean, at least they weren't like, you know, America First, or you know. Okay, 1939. I mean, what a time. So, folks, it's been great. Love seeing you all. And, you know, it continues to be fun. When it stops being fun, just stop coming. And thank you. Oh, thanks, Cheryl, for your little comment there. So, yeah, maybe I'll see some of you this weekend at I mean, you know, I never get a day off these days. You know, I barely can get in around golf. It's terrible. But anyway, I know it's like an hour. I know it might not sound like a lot to you, but really tough. I have such a tough life. So stopped raining in Berkeley. We're happy. And blessings. If I don't see you this weekend, maybe on Tuesday again. Be well. Speak kindly to yourself. Good night.